There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Speck by the Boxmasters.
Yeah.
You can go to theboxmasters.com and pick that up. Sometime soon. Releases June 7th.
Oh,
And
it's
we
nice.
we should give the first one to Adam. What do you say?
There it is. It's Adam. I'm Extra.
Adam, come on in.
I'm beyond honored.
Our old buddy Adam
Come on,
from
Jay,
Extra.
you cut it here. I'll film.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so there you go. First Boxmasters record spec goes to Adam.
Congrats, thank you.
Well, thank you.
You guys rock. Talk about this record and kind of the bent musically, sonically, you were going for, kind of continuing that trajectory you've been on.
Yeah, it's pretty much in the vein of what we've been doing the last few years, the last 2 or 3 records. Although it's we've got some different sounds on this one, and the last couple of records we were really going for a full-on 60s sound, and 60s style songs, and we'd put some songs that were left over from that didn't make other records on our last one that was out called In Stereo. But this one here, we set about making a record that was the reason it's called Speck is because the idea is that we're all just kind of specks of dust in the universe, and we all have our personal problems, and they're bigger global problems and all that kind of stuff. So there are a few political songs on there, and then songs about people's personal struggles. There's a song about the homeless that was actually inspired by when you're about to get on the 405 in Wilshire there in Westwood. There's that over in the bushes there. There's that homeless encampment right there. I was just going by there one day, and I just looked at the juxtaposition between the homeless encampment and all these tall buildings in Westwood behind it. And I thought, what a weird scene. And so we have a song on there called Days Gone that's sort of dedicated to the people that live in these encampments. And they're social problems, political songs, and personal stuff. So it's just that's the idea, is that we're all on this planet together as these little specks in the scheme of things, and what may seem large to us may pale in comparison to some global problem, but at the same time, you live with your problems every day, so they're very close to you, and it may hit you as hard or even harder sometimes. So that's the idea behind the record. And then our friend Matt Cullen came up with this design for the cover. And, originally we were just going to have a white cover with one little speck on it, or like a blood cell or something like that. And Matt sent this along with a bunch of other things, and we just gravitated toward it because it has an iconic look. And at the end of the day, you want a record cover to be iconic looking, something you really remember, like Dark Side of the Moon was, or, things like that. And so this playing card, you see a partial playing card here, but it's got these stains of, people who have touched that card over the years. And we thought, wow, that fits. Those are the specs. It's like the fingerprints all over this card of, all the people who have, dealt it before. So we thought that was cool. And then Jeff Emerick, who was the Beatles engineer starting with Revolver all the way to the end, we'd known Jeff for years, and he'd always wanted to produce a record on us. And finally, this is the one he did. And when he was mixing it, we heard the first song, the first single, and he'd used the treatment on the vocal that he used on John Lennon. And we listened to it, and it was like, wow, it's that sound.
Yeah, which is the first record, or the first song that's on the record, and the one that's kind of previewing everywhere. That was the first one we heard him mix. And, we went in there and went, you made us sound like records that we've heard all our lives.
People are going to be sitting there on their rugs like the old days, playing this record and hearing that sound, and this record's going to touch people the same way the Beatles records touch people 50 years ago.
We'd settle with it touching people the way the Cowsills records did.
That's one of the great things about a record. So, with a CD or something, or Spotify, where there's nothing to look at or no liner notes, you got it all there.
Yeah.
You sit there and you can go, oh,
yeah, and just speaking of that, and just lyrics, I mean, it's just obvious stuff how great it is. But I wrote this down. Obviously, just with the song we're talking about. I mean, the bravest ones are the ones with all the scars. I mean, that kind of sums it up in so many ways. you know, so many of the songs you guys have done and so much of your work. I just kind of love that. If you can just kind of speak to that.
It's called "I Want to Go Where You Go," and that line in there, "The bravest ones are the ones with all the scars." It's you want to be around people who have lived and have gone through stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like with you know, if you're doing say you're doing a movie on Wyatt Earp, the good part is Doc Holliday.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. You guys remember the first record maybe you bought or picked up, and which one meant the most to you as a kid?
I remember mine was Green River by Foger.
Sure, CCR.
Creed, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Oh, I know yours.
Well, yeah, I mean, mine, I think I found it. I was back home at Christmas, and I found the box of vinyl records, and it was one of it's a Chipmunks record.
My first record was given to me by my mom because she listened to LPs all the time.
Yeah.
Back when you put them on and one would drop, you'd have like 7 records on there, you know. And she played them all the time, and she gave me the soundtrack album for King Creole.
Wow.
So, but the first one I bought with my own mitts, I went into Paula's record shop there in Malvern, Arkansas, and I bought the single of "I Want to Hold Your Hand,"
Wow. Yeah.
and that was a huge deal.
I bet.
Yeah. And I have found the single of "I Want to Hold Your Hand" in some of my old junk, but I don't know if it's that one. You know what I mean? I can't imagine it is after all these years.
Yeah.
But I do have that single. It's pretty scratched up.
That's cool to get. But to have that love then, and to have that be your first record like that, and to have that influence carry on, and to have Jeff on this record, this is like a dream thing for you guys to. Be
Me and Billy watched it.
Yeah.
On TV. We watched it on TV.
Yeah.
It happening,
Sure.
and we were like every other kid, like, okay, this is what I have to do. This
Yeah.
is what I have to do. And my dad's sitting there going, "Look at these guys! Look at these guys with the long hair. like, get this. Can we turn it to Lawrence Welk? You know?" And I sat there mesmerized. You know, just like, wow.
I mean,
Change your life.
To think about it, in 1964,
Right.
you're laying there looking at an old black and white Zenith, and you see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and cut to all these years later, and the Beatles engineer produces your record.
Right.
I mean, that's.
What are the chances of that?
I never dreamed I would get out of that town,
Yeah.
let alone meet a Beatle, meet their engineer, work with him. I mean, none of that was even in my wildest dreams.
Want more extra? Hit the subscribe button and the bell and never miss a video.